When you talk about the business of boxing, one of the biggest issues in it is that the guys who are in boxing can't get on and they never do deals, and it took Turkey to come along with money to basically make them work together, right? So with that respect, when you've come on to do this for Turkey, do you almost have to cut out these other guys because they're just going to make your job harder, right? If you're having to negotiate with every promoter in the sun, do you have to come out and eventually just get rid of these guys, lock them in Alcatraz, like Turkey said, and just do it yourself?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm more focused on, if you think about the UFC when we bought the company, we had 3 letters, the old octagon, and 12 contracts. We had to build the thing from the ground up. I think that the sport of boxing is so broken it needs to be built from the ground up again. And that's what I'm going to focus on doing. You know, he's got some commitments over the next 18 months with a lot of guys and a lot of fights and a lot of different promoters, but I talk a lot about USA's Tuesday night fights. You know, they put on like the best up and coming fighters all fought on that show and then became big pay-per-view stars. That's what it's the same thing that happened with the UFC. You know, we started on Spike TV, we built stars, and they became pay-per-view stars. I want to do the same thing with boxing.
So is there a world where you're on stage with De La Hoya and Bob Arum one day, all playing nice?
I mean, let's hope not. I would never say never, but that is not what I plan to do.
Can you talk about the...
So Dana White, he was talking a good game about what he was going to do for boxing in the game of boxing. Now, that was from March of 2025. Dana White was like, hopefully I don't have to work with De La Hoya or Bob Arum. Never say never, but I don't plan on doing that, right? Again, in September of last year, Dana White spoke on not wanting to work in Zuffa Boxing, not wanting to work with the other current promoters.
I don't really know yet. Listen, I live in my own little bubble. I'm going to do my thing. I'm not worried about what any of those guys are doing. And to be honest with you, I think those guys are all they don't think big enough. They don't think big enough. These guys have been in the business for however long. And I like Eddie Hearn. And I see what Eddie Hearn went like Oscar De La Hoya overnight. But he's got a lot of attention, so I get it. But I like Eddie, and but I think those guys all think small. They don't think the way that I think. I had Bob Arum and a bunch of those guys in the past saying that this model was ridiculous and it's a joke. The sport's a joke. It's never going to make it, and all the things that they've said. But when you look at what we've done things that have never been done ever in the combat sports industry. And I say it all the time. Tell me a business or a sport that has generated trillions of dollars in revenue. And at the end of the day, there's absolutely nothing there. That is the sport of boxing in a nutshell. And I just, all the guys that want to compete with me and all this stuff, I think way bigger than you guys do. So I'm not competing with the other promoters. I'm competing with whatever takes the attention of the fans on the night that we're on television. It could be a release of a big movie. It could be the NFL. It could be your wife or your girlfriend that you got to take out that night, your kids. That's my competition.
Okay. So those 2 clips that I played from you was Dana White when it was first announced that Turkey, Sella, TKO Boxing were all joining forces for Dana White to get in boxing under the TKO Corp, right? He was like, these other boxing promoters are small-minded. They're thinking small-minded. I think big. Boxing has generated trillions of dollars with nothing to show for it. It's broken model. We're going to come in and smash the game with building it from the ground up, and it is going to be a momentous occasion, right? Fast forward to the news release. I've already made a video. Caleb Walsh, they're talking about he's fighting Ocampo. Carlos Ocampo, yes, Carlos Ocampo, the one that fought Errol Spence Jr. many, many years ago when Errol was a champion at welterweight. I was at that fight. Then Ocampo got knocked out by Tim Tszyu in Australia. And before that, in between the Errol Spence fight and the Tszyu fight, he lost to Sebastian Fundora. This is Dana White's big debut on Paramount on a Friday. Carlos Ocampo versus Caleb Walsh. Now, more information becomes available about other Zuffa Boxing shows. It says Zuffa Boxing starts slow with Charles Martin versus F.A. Ajagba. Bro, get the out of here. Let me explain. Dana White did all of this talking about how he was not afraid and he was going to revolutionize the game and Zuffa Boxing, all of these things. You got to come harder than Caleb Walsh versus Carlos Ocampo, a PBC leftover. Again, Errol beat him, Tszyu beat him, and Fundora beat him. 3 PBC guys already ran through dude, right? Already ran through him, and this is your main event. Horrible. Now, Dan Rayfield's reporting and others, per sources, F.A. Ajagba has parted ways with Top Rank, signed with Zuffa Boxing, and is fighting Charles Martin in February 14th, so Valentine's Day, as a Paramount Plus headliner. Also, per sources, Zuffa Boxing has signed former IBF titleist Charles Martin, who will be a part of the Valentine's Day show. Bro, who is asking for this? Again, 2 PBC leftovers. Guys that were with F.A. Ajagba was with PBC when he was undefeated, and so was Charles Martin. And Anthony Joshua beat Charles Martin how long ago? And then Luis King Kong Ortiz later beat Charles Martin how long ago? And Adam Kaunaki, all on PBC, except for the Joshua fight. Actually, the Joshua fight was on Showtime, if I'm not mistaken. So I reject your deposit. Dana White, you can't come in the game talking about you about to clean house and these promoters should be afraid of you and all types of stuff. And your big fight card is really people who got washed on PBC and or lost, and now you're trying to put them on main events on Paramount Plus, right? F.A. Ajagba is literally coming off a Bacoli draw, right? You see that here. So he didn't even technically win his last fight in Saudi Arabia. This is not an amazing. It's not an amazing debut for a new company. I would imagine, at least for me, if I had a new company, I would want to come out the gates like boom, smoking. Especially if I talked a lot of trash about how people weren't going to be ready for what's to come. So this is completely laughable when it comes to Zuffa Boxing, and it shows that Saudi money in boxing has slowed up and the purse strings are tightening up. And you guys were the ones that was like, yeah, praise Turkey. Turkey did it. He saved boxing. Explain these cards in the comment section. Are these good cards to you? Yes or no? And for more boxing news, subscribe.